welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we're going to talk about how to draw a kakapo. So let's get arting. Alright, so here is the kakapo. And just going to get started. So they have multiple colors. You know, they have gray beak, a darker gray kind of nose here, brownish, yellowish feathers into here, into some dark brown, yellow around here, and then it gets into some green. So they have a whole lot going on. And their feathers are pretty long, especially once it gets down into here. So it should go fast, you know, just like usual. I'm staggering the lines. Feathers you can do like fur. Now by the beak, often you'll see this with owls too. The feathers kind of loop in forward because of their flat faces. And then here they'll sort of fan back out. And these feathers that are you know, coming in towards his beak, just like with owls, you know, they're going to be just over the beak until you start getting down where the face is recessing more, the beak's pushing more forward. And then down in here, you can see that I'm widening or lengthening out my strokes. The feathers get longer. And by creating this loop, you know, you give the illusion that it's sort of swooshing up. The different line directions can help create different textured effects or, you know, create different illusions for you. That is the first layer. Now we're going to see how this yellow works out. They have a burst of yellow, but I don't know if this is going to be too much, too bright. The feathers, you know, have this yellow before it turns to green. Now as I bring this down, I'm going to be looping it down. It's going to help with that edge. And their feathers definitely have that roundedness to them, so there would be kind of that effect happening anyway. So I'm just fixing the balancing on each side. It's okay to have a little variation, but the green kind of runs into a darker brown, and so I just want to make sure that shows up well on both sides. They have a nice smooth gray beak, and this section is a darker gray, but still gray as well. And I'm going to change the layer order so it's under the feathers. Still overlooping or you know, intermixing the lines. I did the tip first because that'll help me line up everything, and it'll help me from being too overzealous. Going beyond the edge, we'll do the darker gray up here. I'm rounding it because there's a height change. There's like a little bulge as it comes up into this gray. That's why I'm creating a rounded effect. Around the eyes, this little like loop is black, so we'll do it in that same gray color we just did the top of the nose here, but lighter because we can fill this in deeper. There's less space to work with, so it won't be as hard to fill that in. I'm going to have the light source coming from above and to the right. And again, as always, that's above and in front of. Basically, it's the best chance to give my subject the most light on its face. You want the subject to really pop. You can do it above from the right or the left, just not next to or behind. Now they have a pretty extreme like dip in their face on this side. So this is definitely bulging out, and then it'll cast a shadow as we come to this side of the face. I'm going to give some shadowing as it comes down into connects with the nose as well. Might be a little shadowing as it comes up and connects into here, because you have the flat of the face that comes to kind of a bulge in feathers where the yellow kicks in. So we'll do just a little bit of shadowing here too. Now the feathers over the beak would be bulging, that's why they're not going into shadow. They're sort of pushing forward and up. As long as they're in front of the beak. There would probably be some shadowing on this end, but because of how the feathers, how we're drawing it, it's not going to really, it's going to show up a little bit of shadowing anyway because of how we're releasing the pin pressure. And it won't be as noticeable that we haven't shadowed it because we're talking about a smaller space. Over here, the tips would be in shadow before they go, or in highlight before they go into shadow. Doing a little bit of shadow as it connects back on this side to the eye. You know, with the light source coming over here, there's probably some dipping that happens, not a lot, so it won't be a deep shadow. Even though he's got that skin that bulges out, there's probably still a little dip in the feathers. There's also gonna be a lot of light that hits over here because they have flat faces. So after we kind of bring this around, and the feathers here are only going to come down so far before they go underneath. I think maybe here. And then it'll start to shadow underneath instead. And then of course underneath, you know, you're going to have shadowing as it comes down. It's going to be shadowing right through here because the feathers are kind of running down into here, preferably without drawing through the beak. I'm going to do this all in shadow first so I can sort out where the highlights will be. As I often do, you know, I find it easier to add the shadows where I'm just filling in the background when I'm trying to be particular about a highlight, because it's easier to add than subtract. I'm going to say some highlight will probably kick in here. With their flat faces, you got to account for the dip that happens in the shadow that be cast, and then you'd have highlight kicking in again. And I'm going to have some highlight, oops, kicking in on this side of the eye, where just like on the opposite side, there's some bulging in. This would be bulging out potentially. And then underneath, without getting too close to what would be a dip. And just that alone changes the look of the shape of his face, right? Like, makes it more flat looking because of the shadows and the highlights. It's amazing how much shadows and highlights, just, you know, adding a little bit here or there can really alter an image. Just to have a burst where these feathers are coming over. Just going to brighten them up. And they're going to go into shadow. Of course, they'd be in shadow underneath. Gonna make one quick change to the edge here. I'm gonna turn this into, I don't know if it's part of the beak or not, if this bulges at all. It's that yellow first, and then we'll get into the green. Always on the edge, even though this is the side of the light source, it's always in shadow. Because it's, you know, as it rounds around the body, you know, so it rounds around, it's rounding away from the light source. So even though it's on the side of the light source is in front of, so as it rounds away, it would be turning into shadow. All edges have a shadow, unless the light source is literally on the side or behind. I'm gonna have some shadowing here where I believe the feathers are kind of dipping into a spot. If I decide I don't like it, I can always brighten it up and then have the light really kicking in. And then as it comes over, it's going to be hitting some shadow over here too as it kind of rounds in, meets back with the face. probably a little bit further than this one turns into shadow because you have this bulge on top. And the foreheads inevitably have more highlight. Again, shadowing all on the edge, side of the light source, as it rounds away. There is going to be a little bit of light on this strip of green down the side, but there's also going to be a lot of shadow. So just down the middle here, I'm going to add just that little bit of highlight. And this green is going to be all in shadow. I'm going to temper out this shadow into here just a little bit. It's a little much. Make sure that has a good highlight as well. Alright, now a good portion of the beak is going to be in highlight. The reason I did it in shadow was again to control that, because there's going to be a little bit of shadowing under here. This bulges, so that's going to cast just a little bit. And then under the hair, I'm not going to have a highlight either. Not a lot of it. Under the hair, under the fur, under the feathers. Whatever he has. The tip of the beak would be in shadow because it's going down away from the light source. And because it's gray, I don't have to worry about it. If I were using the gray as the black, I have to hold back significantly on the pin pressure. Because it's gray, I don't, but this edge would be in shadow. Just like where the beak is in shadow because this is casting the shadow, this would also be in shadow where it's rounding down. So then we have the eyes. Now, it's hard to see their eyes, so I'm just going to do a light flare. But first we're going to do, just this little bit of black around the eyes. And this is black, so while I'm using the same gray, I'll need to hold off on my pin pressure. Make sure it shows up as black. Give it a little bit of highlight. Still holding back pretty significantly. Alright, and then we're going to fix the yellow by the eyes, or the brown. I'm also going to give the beak just a little bit of a burst, if I can find the layer. There we go. A little bit more than it currently has. Yeah, alright. So then the last thing we'll do is just the eye flare. Once again, we're going to do that little teardrop shape. And then a smaller one over here. Has just that little bit of roundedness to it to mimic the roundness of the eyes, and there we go. Alright, so that is how you draw a Kakapo. I hope that was helpful. In the floating nether next to me I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.